I didn't like their draft. I didn't like the first round pick, and like the second round wide receiver, there were better options on the board, but I got to call it like I see it.
You look at it and say, okay, maybe we lose JuJu Smith-Schuster. Well, they traded for Kadarius Toney. You've got Skyy Moore. You got a ton of draft picks because the Chiefs are never afraid to wheel and deal.
In our rings, we're Super Bowl champ. Now it's restarts. It's time to move on. You're going into training camp next. You want to repeat.
You know, you guys, call me crazy if you've seen this happen before, but it seems that while we're making our way through yet another NFL offseason, there are some questions that are rising about the Kansas City Chiefs. Because from the departures to the signings to the draft picks and even some further potential signings out there that I know some of you Chiefs fans might still be waiting on, but with all things considered on the outside looking in at least, it seems that a select amount of people think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going into this season with a lot more questions than answers. And well, to that I guess I'll say, if you've paid any attention to what they've done or showed us over the course of this summer, they're probably going to find those answers a lot quicker than some of you expect. But before we go any further, today's video is brought to you by our friends at Factor. Now, all of you guys out there know what time it is. Football season is right around the corner, and instead of wasting my time shopping, prepping, and cooking my meals to stay on track with my health goals, luckily instead Factor's got me covered, because with their fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals delivered directly to your door, I get gourmet chef made meals ready to eat in just 2 minutes with no prep, no mess, and a lot of extra time to get ready for the season. And with having over 34 weekly meal options to choose from, along with add-ons like breakfast items, shakes, smoothies, and even juices, the choices seem almost endless. So be sure to head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code FootballDigest50 at checkout to receive 50% off your first Factor box. Once again, that is code FootballDigest50 at Factor75.com, and thank you again to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Kansas City Chiefs, speaking as a neutral fan looking at their entire situation this offseason, they made out pretty damn good going into 2023, when in all reality, it could look a lot different than it does right now. I mean, for starters, there's the loss of Orlando Brown that was immediately followed up by the double acquisition of Donovan Smith and Jawaan Taylor to rotate on the outsides of the offensive line, which to say they might be better than the top 5 unit they were last year is just ridiculous. Then, of course, you also have the further additions on the defensive side of the ball in guys like linebacker Drue Tranquill and even Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year that you picked up from the draft in Felix Anudike-Uzomah. All of that while you're seemingly counting down the days until you get the notification for that Chris Jones contract extension. And when that does eventually happen, it's really just going to round out one of the more young and up-and-coming defenses in all of football. But the O-line and the defense are not necessarily what people are worried about, because that is instead somehow reserved for Kansas City's wide receiver room. Yeah, I really don't know how, but the critics are somehow doing it again. Now, if I were to give you guys a crash course on the mindset that some people out there have on the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core going into the 2023 season, I mean, you don't have to look any further than the 2022 season. Because in almost an identical situation, we're seeing the Chiefs move into a new season with A, not returning their quote-unquote wide receiver one, B, having a group that some would consider unproven pieces to step up to the plate, and last but not least, there's also C, with a rookie wide receiver near the top of their depth chart. And while thinking of most teams that would be in this situation, I could definitely see why there would be at least a little bit of cause for concern. But I mean, it's really like these critics have been in a coma for the last 10 months or so if they somehow think that Kansas City doesn't know what they're doing here. But sure, even though it did work out for Mahomes and company to hoist the Lombardi Trophy last season, things are definitely going to be a lot different this season. For example, if you watched the majority of Kansas City's games last year, you definitely know that they had one of the more ridiculous rates of target share amongst their receivers out of any team that we've seen in quite some time. But But even though it might seem damn near impossible, it's probably going to be greater in 2023, because while the current upper echelon of this wide receiver room consists of guys like MVS and Kadarius Toney, and I mean, it's pretty obvious through their film in the past that their extremely versatile skill sets of providing both deep threat options and short game consistency are clearly why their combination on the field works so well together. But again, to touch on the departures of guys like JuJu Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman, this is where many people like to consider a strong lack of depth outside of your top three in Kelce, MVS, and Kadarius. And sure, while we're going to have to wait until the regular season to see if that's the case, I personally don't think that could be any further from the truth, and these two are easily the biggest reasons why. Now, if there's anyone on this team with an interesting situation going into this season, it's undoubtedly second-year wide receiver Skyy Moore. Because while I'm sure that a ton of people out there are only going as far to look at his numbers and his lack of usage from his rookie season with Kansas City to essentially label him as not being able to have a high stake in the operation of this offense so early. But on the other side of things, it seems like there's been a trend going on as of recently with rookie wide receivers under head coach Andy Reid. For example, when looking at some of the instances where Skyy Moore was consistently used on the field last season, there was never really anything that stuck out as a red flag, considering most of his positives, such as his consistent quickness and body control, his speed, or even his ability to play on the outside or in the slot, were always used as an advantage when he was on the field. It just seemed like if there was anything that was holding him back, it was more so his familiarity with Andy Reid's offense and even the timing of route running with Patrick Mahomes. But again, the thing about rookies with Andy Reid and even Patrick Mahomes is that Skyy Moore is not the first person to go through this. Because to look at some of the rookie campaigns of prior receivers and guys like Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman, it's very clear that they both took jumps in their own respective rights. And with this, I'm also not trying to guarantee you guys that Skyy Moore is going to jump to a completely new level this season, but I mean, from everything that we've heard from Skyy, Patrick, and Andy Reid so far, it's definitely something to consider. But what if I also told you the new rookie could even make that impact? Now, if there's any type of receiver that can come in and make an immediate impact in the NFL, it is 100% the build that Rashee Rice is. Because being a guy who clearly you can see from his college days was someone who thrived in getting 50-50 balls, was extremely shifty in creating separation, and honestly, when looking at this film a little further, reminds me of someone who can fill the exact type of role that JuJu played in this wide receiver room. But even aside from what these guys can do, the depth that people say is missing from this team has literally gone nowhere. I mean, there's the free agent addition in Richie James, the returning piece in Justyn Watson, both Justyn and Justyn Ross, who have reportedly been dominating in offseason training. You've got the secondary tight ends in Noah Gray and end zone threat Jody Fortson, and that's not even mentioning the running back room and what they bring to the table here as well. And I mean, with all of this at their disposal, it's clear that they do have the potential to be more dynamic than they've ever been, but of course, as they continue to hit the ground running in the offseason, we'll just have to wait and see. Nonetheless though, you guys, I'm extremely curious what you all have to think about the Kansas City Chiefs, so be sure to let me know in the comments, what do you think their record's gonna be in 2023, and how do you see their offense looking come week 1? But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all more than anything, and I will see you guys in the next video.